Well, welcome to somewhat of a special edition of our podcast today. I'm Marcy Markusa, your host. And if you've been tuning in before to the podcast, then you know that we try to focus things around a question that matters in this place where we all live, in Manitoba. Today's question is going to take us out to a part of Manitoba that we recently visited with our CBC Radio morning show here. The question is, what was it like for Manitobans to face down the flames of a wildfire? So on This is Manitoba today, we're going to hear from someone who's a firefighter and faced down the flames in Piney. He works on protecting structures. He's also had a lot of experience in BC in wildfires before. But we begin by taking you to Lac du Bonnet. Lac du Bonnet is a small community of about 1,200 people, and surrounding the rural area, there's an additional amount of population. It's a lake community. There's some farmers there. There's some people that have been there for generations as permanent residents, and then there's seasonal folks that own cottages and cabins up that way, overlooking the beautiful Winnipeg River. Well, Lac du Bonnet had suffered a wildfire that is currently, at the time we're doing the podcast, considered under control. However, when the fire moved through that part of the province, it was the area of Manitoba that we saw loss of life. 2 people from the arm of Lac du Bonnet lost their lives in these fires, and it happened on Wendigo Road. Our morning show, which I also host here at CBC Manitoba, went on location on Wendigo Road. We were invited to do our show from the porch of one of the families there, a generational farm. The Carkland farm is where we were situated to do the show. And up first on the podcast, you're going to hear from someone living on Wendigo Road who had a firsthand experience facing down the fire. The fire here is considered under control, but I can tell you we're still hearing the helicopters, water bombers. There's crews all over the place. They're trying to watch hot spots for the peat. The smoke, of course, is in the air still, and that's also coming from the Nopaming fire. But we're at the Carkland farm. This is on Wendigo Road. This is one of the most severe hit areas in this part of the province and in the fire. And we're at the Carkland farm just on the porch, as I mentioned, overlooking. Actually, the road is right behind me here. And it's interesting because there's a lot of green that's starting to come up. And then it's so strange because some of the trees that burned, they're just still standing, but they're standing where they burned. They haven't even been felled. So when you're driving in here, it's just a strange sight. I bet that 2 weeks ago when all this really started here feels like a lifetime ago for my next guest. Gay Kirby lives on Wendigo Road, and she, as she put it, escaped, she escaped something really that could have been a terrible fate. Not only once, but twice, she ultimately was helicoptered out to safety, and only thanks to, her son and an RCMP officer, I understand. And so Gay's come up the road because what this broadcast is all about is people sharing their stories, but also their thanks and their hope for the future. And we're so happy to see you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
So I'm going to let you start where you want to. Do you want to talk about what happened, or do you want to start with the thank yous this morning and the positive part?
Well, I think I want to thank you too for coming out here, because last week I had phoned CBC because I thought people should be thanked. I know people should be thanked, but we've had a chance to process so much stuff. It was so high emotions, and I actually thought I was okay. We were evacuated and didn't know enough, but now if someone else, everybody's asking everybody, are you okay? And I don't think we are.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Riva, where we're here right now, she she messaged our local group here, and it was because of her that the first 3 people got out safely. My husband and I and our 2 neighbours, we were trapped because where we are is actually on Latonia Lane off of Wendigo, and it's a peninsula. So when we tried to drive out, we drove right into, we thought it was smoke that just turned into a flame that was shooting straight horizontal across the road.
Do you remember what you're thinking in that moment? Could you smell and feel it, or is it just this reaction? Is that really a flame?
You can't believe it because the wind was just screaming, so the fire was going straight across the road. So my husband backed up, which was very difficult because it was just black. And when we got off of there, we went off into the point, and we actually thought the fire was going to go sideways. And we went down to the beach to our neighbor's place, who were still there and were still packing up. And I happened to phone my son, told him we were waiting. He said, Mom, I'm going to hang up the phone now. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. So he phoned the RCMP.
So you're standing on the beach and you've turned back from this wall of flame, and now you're waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, well, no, I phoned him.
You phoned him.
And he said, and he phoned the RCMP, who phoned the provincial helicopters, and they showed up.
So are you standing there like, what, do you see this? Do you hear the helicopter first, or could you see
yeah,
it through the
he
smoke?
went around because, of course, they need space to land, and we happened to, there's a field in front of the beach, so we moved our cars back, and where we moved it back, that it eventually got burned, but we got out. But I have to explain that weren't truly aware of how severe it was, that the fire was minutes away, and we didn't know that until later. So
a lot of people are saying that, though, because of how quickly it moved. There were people saved off out of a different fire. A man who was fishing with his son, and they were it wasn't until they got in the air that they looked down and went, oh. What was it like for you? Were you able to look out when the helicopter took off? We were. We're all
snuggled in there. But honestly, I thought I didn't think it was that serious. Yeah. It took weeks. Days before I kind of put those pieces together. And
what would you have you seen the RCMP officer or the copter pilot that saved you after this?
Yes, I did. I phoned the RCMP and thanked them, and I phoned the provincial helicopters and talked with Corey. He was the pilot, and thanked him. So I think we might be buying them a few gifts as a thank you.
You were saying that the feeling of things is coming and going, because really you're processing. Most of us can only imagine and hope we never go through, Gay.
Everybody, I was talking with people at the food bank yesterday, and I really what we're all in that terrible position of being very, very grateful, because I've discovered that the firefighters were fighting for hours and hours to save our house and our neighbor's house.
We should mention your home was saved.
Yes, our home
was saved. Yeah.
And our neighbor's home. The fire was literally inches away from our home when you see and they saved it. And we're all in this terrible position right now of being grateful for having a home, but sorrowful, just so painful that other people lost everything.
Yeah, and including your neighbors. And I just want to mention this, because people might be wondering why we have in the morning. I haven't talked about the Knowles yet, but that is really out of respect just for the family here. So obviously Richard and Sue Knoll, they lived right up the road. I can see the curve where they would have lived, and they did lose their lives in this fire. What do you think the support will be needed in this area for the way forward, given the processing what everybody went through, those that survived like yourself, and and also just looking around at how much has been lost?
Well, that's I think talking. I think this is a community I know it's a community that stays very close together, and just standing around, going through what happened, getting those feelings out. Talking about it is so important, and sharing and talking with especially the people who lost everything, and supporting them.
How do you feel about, we talked about the firefighters and the RCMP that were, helping, but how do you feel about your friends and neighbors? I'll tell you, Corey and I, we keep hearing from everybody how it was like, we knew we lived in a good community, but everyone just, do you need food? You need a place to stay? Do you need clothes? Everybody's just been stepping up. They said like crazy. And let's remember, everybody in Manitoba listening, Lac du Bonet's only got, I think, like about 1,000, 1,200 people. And then you have this rural area. People are spread out, but everybody just kind of sprung into action.
I went to see Dorothy the other day. You can not see
across
her
the
home,
street. There's a property
just
here.
Across the road, and she was dressed out in new clothes, and they looked great on her. And she has a place that her friend let her live.
This is a woman across the road that actually lost her whole home. It's just a foundation.
That's right.
Now.
She got out with her 3 dogs. So,
yeah.
and.
This is a beautiful segue to something here for just a minute, because you're talking about Dorothy, and she got it with her 3 dogs.
Yes.
So let this be a hopeful way for us to end our interview. Let's show everybody in Manitoba this, if they can see it.
That's fabulous. That's a friend of that made that for her.
Describing a sign, radio listeners.
This is her dog Gibbs. They would go every single day, go way out onto the end point with her dogs in her little cart. And she had that made for him, and he loved to get to the end, and that's what he would get. He and his two buddies, would get their treats, and he'd go for a swim.
So what we're looking at is a wooden sign that has sort of this picture of Gibbs, and there he is. It says Gibbs Point on the sign, and what I love about this is this survived. Yeah. So there's Dorothy, just with a foundation left, on her home she had for many years, this lady. But this sign was apparently recovered just yesterday, and so
that's wonderful. I'll give it to her this afternoon. When I go into town, I'll give it to her.
Gay, all the best to you and your neighbours and all the people of Lac du Bonnet here. Mm-hmm. And as we, whenever we visit a part of the province, I think, I don't want it to be a cliche, but when we were in Dauphin after a tragedy there, Dauphin strong, and floods, it becomes Red River Valley strong. And so here's to Lac du Bonnet strong, to you and your neighbours. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
So that's my conversation with Gay Kirby, who is a resident of the Arm of Lac du Bonnet and lives on Wendigo Road. As you heard, she was saved from a recent wildfire. Well, I want to also give you a little bit of a picture on the podcast today about what things look like in Manitoba, in this specific part of our province, in the aftermath. So have a bit of a listen to what it was like as we drove into the area. The sound of removing old dead trees in the fire-burned portion of Lac du Bonnet. Marcy Markusa, we're live on Wendigo Road today as we explore where this community is at and what the way forward is going to be after these devastating wildfires. So it's an interesting experience coming out to the Lac du Bonnet area. Down a rural road, it's just so quiet. And you can hear the wildlife still. And as you're driving in, green, lush, beginning of spring. And then you turn down the area that leads to Wendigo Road. This is one of the areas where the fire really took hold. And you start to smell it. And beside me on either side of this highway, you can just see the path that the fire took as we steadily get towards some of the hardest hit areas. The trees on the side of the beautiful boreal forest, all of the bottoms just about 8 feet up from the trunk are charred, and yet the tree beyond that, taller, will look healthy, and that of course is because of the height of the flames as they moved at least through this part of Manitoba. So we just rounded the bend on Wendigo Road. This is really where it opens up by the water, and I've not seen anything like this. I mean, this is obviously where the greatest loss of structures was in this area. It's just nothing. Everything's charred. There's stoves standing. There's about 4 burnt out, melted cars back in there. Look at that. Chimney structure, just still holding, still standing. That looks very eerie in the middle of a pile of rubble. That should have been someone's fireplace, still standing. Twisted metal everywhere. It smells like wood chips and ash a little bit, like stale ash. Well, this just goes on and on. It just ripped right through here. Look at the trees. Like, they're not even trees. Now we're in an area where it's just like black. Imagine you just put black sticks in the ground. Like, literally black sticks that are maybe 20 feet tall, and that's it. Well, I may not have driven through many wildfire zones like what you heard there into the aftermath in Lac du Bonnet before, but the next person on the podcast certainly is no stranger to facing flames. Although usually Greg Zimmerman has been in British Columbia. He's fought some of very big wildfires out that way. He currently, though, works here in Manitoba. He was one of the firefighters who went in to protect the community recently in the rural municipality of Piney. He and his crew specialize today in structural fires. So his job is to prevent a massive fire from getting close to any of the homes or businesses in the rural areas. He's been in firefighting for 47 years, and he's seen his fair share of devastation, from protecting a town from burning down to fighting flames right there within the forested areas. He says most firefighters will have to battle a wildfire at some point in their career. So what is it like to face the wall of flames? To return to our podcast question, here's my conversation with Greg Zimmerman, who is also Altona's current fire chief. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So it's interesting, Mr. Zimmerman, because you also have experience in BC, and I've been saying through all this crisis in Manitoba that this feels different in Manitoba. Just, we're in Lac du Bonnet, but I mean, all over the province right now, and Nopaming, and if a lot of people are talking about, like, wow, are we turning into BC? Why do you say that at some point, we're going to have to, firefighters are going to have to be ready to fight a wildfire?
Well, I think you're going to have to take a look at the last few years, and there has been a shift to seeing much larger and more devastating fires than there has been in the past. Some of the experts are saying it's a little bit to do with the climate change and the fact we're not getting enough moisture on the ground like we used to get in the past.
What was the weekend like in Piney when you were out there at the heart of it?
We were okay when we were out there. It wasn't so bad. It was the first day we were preparing and drawing our defensive lines to halt the fire from coming into, oh my gosh, I forgot the name, to come into the town. And, fortunately for us, it happened to rain that day. And the next day we got very busy picking up all the hot spots before they had a chance to flare back up.
What's it feel like when you're trying to fight flames and then you do realize something's going to be lost and you have to switch in a different direction? Like, what does it emotionally feel like for you out there?
If you're involved and the fire rolls over and gets into a town or a lot of the cottages, it's a very sad feeling when you watch it. When you look at it at the time of the fire, you don't think too much about it. You're very busy and you're thinking about lots of other things like trying not to get burnt yourself. But when it's done and you look and you see like the foundation, and you look and you see swing sets or toys in the front yard from maybe a family that had children, and you just see foundation after foundation after foundation. It's very, very sad and very draining on an individual.
How long are you standing out there? Because I'm just imagining, like, I can't imagine you must be out there for hours and hours because you're literally like digging and spraying and like take me to sort of a front line when you're fighting this.
Well, if you're an actual wildfire firefighter and you're on the front line, it is an awful lot of work. I very much admire those people because it's a very, very tough and grueling job. You're out there doing backbreaking work. You've got a shovel or you've got a Pulaski. You're either trenching or digging something up. Or you're packing a pump and looking for a little pond to get some water out of. But, you're out there all day long. It's not like now I'm doing structural firefighting where, once you get really hot and you get thirsty, you can go sit in the air-conditioned vehicle. When you're out in the bush, you're stuck in the bush. There are no amenities. There is no air-conditioned room. When you get hot, you're hot and you stay hot. And it's very, very tough to be out there. It's a very, very tough job. You also don't have the availability of getting backup. If you get a fire and you know that it's a little bigger than what you can handle and you're working on it, and you send in the call, in the structural fire department, that's usually the neighboring town drives there. But if you're out in the forest, you're probably going to have to wait for them to find the crew and get a chopper and get them out there. So it takes quite a bit of time to get your help out there. So you just have to work that much harder to keep it going to try and stop the fire.
I know you've described it as adrenaline, but not excitement. I wonder how well you have to understand wind and if you've ever had a close call when it's a fire just maybe switched direction. You've had a lot of experience, as we mentioned, including in BC.
Yes, I know. Like my biggest fire in BC, I think was 2005. We'd set up monitors, with water, and then the big can of like 750 gallons per minute on a straight stream, and you aim it at the fire, and the fire was just so large that the water never even touched the fire. It vaporized before it got there. It's just an immense amount of heat, and at that point in time, there's just nothing you can do to stop it.
What would you say to the firefighters across Manitoba right now, and also the volunteer firefighters that maybe are trying to process even what they're going through and maybe what they've been through in the cases of those that are now having a much needed rest because they're not called out, about how to process all of this for themselves as human beings?
Well, I like to tell everybody comes out and works on a call, Everybody's out there. They're doing a great job. They're out there obviously because they're trying to help people and save property. And probably the best thing to do is, I know sometimes you can't save the property and it burns down, but stop and concentrate on what you have saved and what you have done. It's a pretty good feeling if you stop and take everything in and then realize that you did stop the fire from coming into town, or you did stop it from getting into a little cottage area. So you've done a great service to everybody else, and pretty much everybody in Manitoba appreciates the job they're all doing. So, think of the positive, not the negative.
I'm sure it won't be the last time we talk, unfortunately, Greg Zimmerman. We're just at the start of a season here, so hoping for the best and hoping for rain. Take care. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yes, thank you very much. You have a good day.
Greg Zimmerman is the chief of the Altona and Rhineland Emergency Services. I'm Marcy Markusa. This is Manitoba, our podcast. If you found value in what you heard today, don't forget to like and share. And please reach out anytime through our radio channels, radio 893 at cbc.ca, if you have a story to share that you'd like to share on the podcast.